the first questions I have for you is, what does it look like to eat a Biblio diet? I had somebody ask me this recently. They said, well, is the Biblio diet, is that pretty much like the Mediterranean diet? And I was like, no, it's actually not the Mediterranean diet at all. Maybe there's a few food overlaps, but overall, it's not the Mediterranean diet. It's actually fairly different.
It is, and I think the Mediterranean diet as people see it today is probably a lot different than the Mediterranean diet throughout history. And so when you put a label on a diet or you talk about blue zones, there's always bias in there. And I will tell you that in the Bible, people did not consume pork, shellfish, and other detestable animals that God talks about in Leviticus 11, Deuteronomy 14. This is not kosher. This predates kosher, and it really involves God's definition of food versus filth.
All right, so I want to actually look up what kosher means really quick. All right, it says, I don't know if you can see this very well. I'll just read it. A kosher diet follows the 3,000-year-old dietary laws of Judaism, kashrut. It defines which foods are permitted and how. Okay, got that. All right, so obviously it follows Leviticus 11, but then it goes into the preparations of meat. Yeah, it goes very much more in depth. I know there's like kosher salt. There's like, I don't know, they put kosher on all kinds of stuff in the grocery store, and I feel like they do the same thing that they do with gluten. So I don't really fully understand the concept of kosher outside of like what Leviticus 11 says. So I don't know. And probably the way that it's prepared makes sense. So anyway.
He says, I have called you from all the peoples on the face of the earth to be different. You had mentioned this earlier. Therefore, here's what you should eat. Here's what you shouldn't eat. This is because God cares for us. And here's the bottom line. Because of a mistranslation in a New Testament scripture where it says, thus he declared all foods clean, and people use this.
Pretty sure that's Luke. I can tell you this. I watched a video recently from a Messianic Jewish preacher. So basically he's a Jew by birth or heritage. And then he gave his life to Christ, and then he teaches the Bible through a Jewish perspective, or like the original Hebrew language. And I thought it was in Luke. I'm not really sure. I'm struggling here to find it because I feel like I read it recently, and I have not read Acts recently. So yeah, because they were talking about all kinds of... Anyway, the point being, I can't find it. But the point being, this guy said, or this pastor said, I guess you would call him a rabbi. This rabbi was like, yeah, no, that's not even in there. He was like, they're talking about something completely different from foods being clean and unclean. They're talking about the washing of hands was like a whole ritual that they did before they ate. And at that time, the disciples got busted for not washing their hands before they ate. And at that moment in that time, Jesus was like, well, these foods are clean even though their hands. So he wasn't like declaring all foods clean. That was just something somebody decided to put in there after the fact because they wanted to excuse us being unhealthy, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, so it is completely out of context. Anyway.
This for time memorial that we can eat shellfish and pork now. Bottom line, that is not the case because our body hasn't changed, and the physiology and anatomy of a pig, a skunk, a rat, and people say, I would never eat a rat or a skunk. Well, they do in some parts of the world, Josh, just like they eat dogs and cats. Absolutely. Shellfish, that is a no-no, not because of religious reasons or faith reasons, but because it is a simple law like gravity.
Yeah.
Those are the trash cans of the world.
The trash cans of the world. What he means is most of those, like not most of them, all those animals. So you'll see the birds that God forbids us to eat are predators. So they're over there killing things, which makes them not clean at all. And then, I mean, all the foods that he says are clean are vegetarian, right? They eat fruits, they eat veggies, they eat plants. They do not eat meat. They do not eat other animals. Pigs, on the other hand, do. First of all, they eat human flesh if they want, but they eat the filth. They eat their own filth. And then you also have the shellfish, which he's about to explain, which are basically the vacuum cleaners on the bottom of the ocean, eating all the fecal matter from the other fish above. And that's the same for other bodies of water too, like catfish, I guess, are bottom feeders. Stay away from bottom feeders, all right? SpongeBob, Patrick, you're safe.
The other thing is modern science proves this. I mean, there was an article that came out based on a scientific study, and it basically said shrimp are the dirtiest animal of the sea in terms of dioxins and sort of just holding on to your point.
No more shrimp cocktails. That's disgusting.
Just pathogens. And then, of course, we know pork is the same. It's the greatest, I mean, anyone can look this up themselves, the greatest carrier of parasites on the planet.